The need was thrumming in his mind and body like jet engines revving up for a takeoff. It had been almost 6 months since his last victim, and from his point of view, that was way too long. After each experience, it seemed as if the need returned more quickly than it had the previous time. Now, as he drove through the largely deserted suburban neighborhoods, he thought fondly of his last conquest. She had been 10 years old, or so she had told him, a sweet little brunette with blue eyes and apple cheeks. Just the thought of her was enough to stoke the fires that raged within him, creating overwhelming desire that he could not resist. There had been 7 in all so far. It had all begun when he was taking a walk through a park and encountered a young girl who had become separated from her parents. It wasn't something he had thought about before or ever. The urge just came upon him from some deep, dark place within his soul, and he readily gave in to it. As he turned a corner onto another silent street, he tried to tell himself that he was being reckless, that a failure to be calm and cautious would land him in prison or maybe even on death row. He knew he had been lucky so far. Despite media reports about the vicious predator, despite the growing rewards being offered for his capture and conviction, it seemed that no one had seen him or had any suspicion whatever that he was that predator. Certainly, he didn't look like a predator. He looked like the proverbial wimp that were the object of ridicule in many a movie and TV show. He wore the thick glasses, had the thin, unruly hair, had the shallow chest and weak chin of the quintessential wimp. But he knew he was more than a wimp. His 7 conquests proved that much, and each one had been so fulfilling, so exciting, so rewarding. And now his need had grown to the point of being nearly overwhelming. As he drove his van down one street and then another, he thought about what he would do with the next conquest, how long and luxuriously he would enjoy the experience. His breath came raggedly and his heart raced. And then, when he turned the next corner, there, right on the sidewalk, was a young girl of perhaps 8 or 9 years, sauntering along in the cold as if she hadn't a care in the world. Well, he thought, she soon will have many cares. There was no traffic on the street other than himself, no sign of life in any of the houses, no one to see. He pulled the van over and got out. "Excuse me, young lady, but do you know where Johnson Street is?" he asked her in his most unassuming and wimpy voice. She looked up at him with a little smile on her face, as though he might be a kindly uncle. "Well, sir," she said, "I do think I know where it is, and it's not too far from here, but it's kinda hard to find it if you don't know the neighborhood." He blinked once, twice. This was simply too good to be true. And she was stunning. Soft blonde hair, big blue eyes as he preferred, rosy cheeks from the cold, a perfect little body. What more could he ever ask for? He said, "Do you think you might show me where it is?" "Sure," she said, walking over to his van. He simply couldn't believe what he had lucked into on this cold December day. He opened the passenger door and helped her onto the seat, and she giggled a little as she settled herself. He started the van and headed for the open country beyond the suburbs, toward a place he had carefully scouted out before. She sat in the passenger seat humming to herself, something that seemed familiar but that he couldn't quite place. There was also some distant, sharp, acrid odor that tickled his nose, though he couldn't place where it was coming from. It smelled a little like a struck match, but he didn't have any matches in the van. But that thought faded as he looked over at the girl. "I don't think you're going in the right direction, sir," she said, looking out the window. "No worries. I just have to make a quick stop, and then we'll find it," he said. "Oh, okay," she said, with that same little innocent smile that turned him on. Soon he was in the country, and then he turned down a rutted road that led into a patch of heavily forested land. Driving back from the road for nearly a mile, he came to the place he had previously scouted, a small clearing surrounded by huge old trees. "Is this where we have to stop?" she asked. "Oh yes," he said, "this is the exact place. Now we're going to go in the back of the van and have fun for a little while." "That sounds good," she said. He was aware once more of the odor in the van, that odor that was like a struck match, and he wondered again what it might be. But he didn't really care, because the need and the desire was growing in him like a storm. "What's your name?" he asked her. "Oh, I have many names," she said with a giggle. "What's yours?" That was a curious answer, he thought. "Mine is Oscar. Now let's go in the back of the van, all right?" "Sure," she said. When they were in the back, he pulled the curtain that divided the driver's area from the rest of the van and began to unbutton his shirt. Kneeling before her, he looked into her face to savor her look of terror. But surprisingly, there was no look of terror. There was only that small smile. As he gazed at her, he saw that something was happening to her eyes. Strangely, they were changing color. The beautiful white and blue was changing to yellow and black. And what was happening to her face? Her beautiful clear skin was changing, turning to a brownish, scaly color. And when she smiled again, her mouth was filled with a mass of sharp teeth. He had chosen the location very well. His screams went on for hours, and no one heard, until finally there was nothing left but a few hoarse moans that trailed off into silence, and then the sound of a little girl's laughter.